Yeah, I guess I don't need to read the bio or anything, but thanks for coming. Just a couple of announcements. Yeah, check out our website. Most of our events are open to the public. We'll have a reading group, beginner reading group starting this Sunday. And yeah, make your down. One of the best projects on Ethereum. So yeah, check it out. Cool. Thanks, Doug, for coming and Fed for making us in touch.
All right, let's go. Okay, so I'm going to just kick this off a little bit about me, and then prepared a few slides. I'm going to talk about blockchain and poker, and then we'll open up the Q&A, and that's going to be the majority of it. So we'll play by ear, go from there, and yeah. Anyway, so thank you guys for being here today. Nice to get to talk to everybody. Thank you for inviting me to come speak. Looking forward to it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So I started playing poker professionally when I was 20 years old. I realized that there was a strategy game that you played against people to win money. Still can't believe that's a thing. And I dropped out of school and became a full-time poker professional. I specialize in online poker, not live poker. A little mix here, some Bitcoin people, some poker people, so some of you will know more of this than others. But I really specialized in one-on-one poker. That was really my main game played online. So I played that for years. Ultimately, I became the best at that specific format, and then kind of started to transition into some other areas. And one of the things I've always been interested in is cryptocurrency. So I found Bitcoin back in 2013. Nice. It's actually kind of funny the way that I first stumbled across it. So the first poker Bitcoin site was called Seals and Clubs, and I remember hearing about it. So I think I put like a little bit of money on it to try and learn about it and just kind of see what everything was all about. And I was reading on the forums about Bitcoin and kind of what was going on and learning about it. And I found that there were these dice sites. Have you guys ever heard of like a dice site with Bitcoin? It's like a gambling site. Well, it turns out that you could be the house in these, right? So essentially, investors were getting Bitcoin to a site, and then the site was using your money to allow gamblers to gamble, and the site would take a 1% commission, and the house would split that between them and the investors. So when I first heard this, I was like, wait, you can be the house? Okay, I'm in. So I started just rounding up some Bitcoin, putting on the different sites. A bunch of my friends got in there too. And that was my first real experience with Bitcoin, was being the house on these various sites. So got into Bitcoin in 2013, and just between that type of investment and also using it to kind of move money as a poker player, obviously liquidity is always important, I became more and more interested in Bitcoin in general. So fast forward a few years, last year, I've been kind of looking for some different areas to get involved in, kind of outside poker. I feel like I've accomplished a lot of my goals there. And I always found myself really interested in cryptocurrency. So I started learning a lot about the new projects, some of the other currencies, all of the things that have been happening, all the history of things. And yeah, that kind of culminated in late last year. I started a YouTube channel for cryptocurrency. How many of you guys have seen my YouTube channel? Either one. Okay, that looks about right. Nice. Okay, cool. So anyways, I started some videos over there. And yeah, I would say that as of right now, I'm a poker expert and a cryptocurrency enthusiast. But I love this space and I try to learn about it every day. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of like my background. As of what I do right now, I own two businesses. I have an online poker training site called Upswing Poker. It's the largest online poker training site, and then I also just started a cryptocurrency news site called CoinCentral with more of a focus on trying to get people accurate, good information rather than the shill-fest garbage that you see generally online. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I have a couple YouTube channels as well I post content on, and that's a little brief bio about me, kind of the way that I've spent my last life. Okay, so let's go ahead. I prepared a few slides for us, and we're going to be talking about blockchain and poker. Okay, so we're definitely seeing right now all kinds of different areas. We're seeing the introduction of blockchain technology to try and improve them. So the one that I feel I have the most knowledge about is poker, because of the obvious reasons. So let's go ahead and get into it. Blockchain and poker. Okay. So the question is, how should we embrace blockchain technology to improve the online poker ecosystem? What can we do? How can we use blockchain to make it better? We should. Okay, so so this is going to be a great. This is a nice premise to kind of open with here. The thing is, when any space starts to blow up, right? People want to do everything they possibly can. We want blockchain everything, right? It's hot. Let's make a token. Why? Because it makes money, and people start making tokens nonstop for everything. Well, I don't think that that's a good thing. And I don't think that it just means that just because you have an online business, it should necessarily be on the blockchain. And I think poker is a really good example of this because the types of problems with online poker aren't really solved by blockchain. They're not really solved by, we think about the product. Actually, let me do the next slide here. Okay, so think to be thinking to yourself, why are they using their own token and not Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? And that's a really important thing for anyone that's looking at new currencies that you're considering investing in, or ones that you like what they're trying to do, or ones that have been around for a while, or anything that's going on. Think to yourself, why this and not the bigger currencies that are out there, right? Why not ones with more adoption or liquidity? And what I found to be the answer for a lot of the times here is people make their token because they want to make money, right? And that's not really good for you as the person considering buying a new cryptocurrency. You want something that can actually do something that helps the world, actually has utility. Now, what degree of utility is an important question as well, and that's oftentimes people have different answers to. But in general, I think it makes perfect sense for online poker sites to allow Bitcoin or Ethereum to be deposits, as ways to get currency onto the site, but not really your own token. I don't really see the additional value here. So let's talk about some of the pros, because there are actually a few things that are good about blockchain poker. It's provably fair and verifiably fair using distributed ledgers and open source contracts. So one thing since like the dawn of online poker time that people complain about, and I still to this day hear people complain about this, is why when I have kings is there always an ace on the flop? It's a little weird, right? There is no reason that a large online business is going to try and screw you over by putting an ace out there when you have pocket kings. That's not happening. Okay? And the reason it's not happening is because they actually have to be approved by the gaming commission wherever you're at, depending on where your company is located. You have to be approved by the gaming commission to be able to have online gambling, right? So why would massive companies try and just screw over random people for kicks just because they don't like you and want your kings to lose? That's not happening, right? It's not happening. The problem is there are a lot of people with tinfoil hats who think it's happening or think it's all a little too weird. In fact, there's stories all the time about how certain cards seem to come up. It's a little weird, right? It's not. It's not. So, but it does do that. It is actually provably fair, right? Because using a distributed ledger, you can everyone kind of deals together and encrypts data together. So it's actually fair. And because it's open source, you can actually see what's happening. It is provably fair. So if you 100% wanted to absolutely make sure that it was fair, you could use this. Another good thing is having no central point of failure, right? One problem with sites sometimes is if a site goes down, you can't play, right? If servers are down, you can't play poker. But if it's decentralized and all of your computers are acting as the network, then you don't have that same central point of failure. That's also good. And then finally, if it's a decentralized network, then you're always going to receive your payments, right? It's all done through smart contracts. So if you beat someone, then you'll actually be paid out no matter what, which is also pretty good. Another thing worth mentioning here is that almost 100% of the payments are processed anyway. So again, what exactly is the benefit? Cons to blockchain poker. And there are a few pretty big ones, but let's start off with the fact that it is a worse product, right? One thing you have to keep in mind is from a user experience standpoint, there needs to be a reason that people want to improve the product. They want to make it better, right? And so when you look at like a company, they're incentivized to do that because the company makes more money. Well, in this instance, they're not making money, right? Now the tokens might appreciate value, which as long as they hold their tokens, incentivize them correctly, but what if they sell their tokens, right? There might not be any reason that they want to make the experience better. I think that's a con. Also, and this is another funny one too, the network fees. You know, I've talked with basically all of these projects to some extent, and I think it's just because people are like, all right, we're starting a poker site with cryptocurrency. I'm thinking Doug. That seems to be a pretty common approach. But I always ask them, like, what about the fees, right? They mainly use the Ethereum network. What about the fees? And they're always like, oh, well, you know, the technology's coming, man. Like, could be next year. Like, we'll have like cheap poker. But as of right now, it costs like 22 cents to get dealt in like $1 game. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know more rake's better, but that might be a little too much rake. So I feel like high network fees are something that, you know, maybe down the road, that aspect of it is more manageable. But currently, I don't think anyone has a very good solution to the current fees, at least on the Ethereum network. Although it is worth saying, the fees have gone out a lot in the last few months. All right, so also barrier to entry. When you think about playing poker, you want to play with recreational players, you want to play with people that don't play often. And so, does it really make sense that Bob, when he gets home from work and wants to play a little online poker, has to go to a different exchange, buy it, and then transfer probably to Binance to get your token, exchange into your token, then put it on the site? No, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to play on site, right? He wants to be able to quickly and easily get on there. So I think for, you know, and then obviously there are liquidity issues as well with the exchanges. You know, if there aren't people buying and selling the token enough, then you might not be able to easily get your tokens or sell your tokens when you want money, fiat, Bitcoin, whatever. So anyway, long story short, lots of cons. What do all blockchain poker sites have in common? Very little traffic and low rate. We got to push back. Wait, you can't see this. Wait, here we go. You got to add in the face of low rate here. Okay, so this is another problem that I see in a lot of the white papers. Obviously, all currency has white paper. Quote, there is a fixed supply of tokens. As demand for the token increases, so must the price. And this is a common thing that we see in a lot of the white papers. People are trying to explain, like, you know, why they might succeed, why the tokens go up in value. And that's definitely true that if you have a fixed supply, as demand increases, then yes, the price will increase. But that doesn't mean that the demand will increase. You know, it's kind of like cool story bro to some extent. It's like if our token becomes really, really demanded, it's going to be worth a lot. Yeah, but what are you doing to get there? What is that process like? And I feel like a lot of these projects really have not found good solutions to that either. All right, we're going to talk about a couple of the bigger sites that are currently available or launching or whatever. I guess sites the wrong word. I was talking about Virtue Poker. I've talked to these guys a little bit. And for what it's worth, I do think it's important to say that I think a lot of these guys are trying to do things that are good. I think a lot of people are trying to do things that are good. But I just feel like sometimes maybe it's a little bit misguided. So Virtue Poker is a decentralized peer-to-peer poker platform built on the Ethereum network and aims to have decentralized card shuffling, smart contracts to facilitate transactions, and a justice system, which I find absolutely hilarious. like justice system. It sounds great, right? Like nice. We got some but who are the justices? There in a second. So let's talk about the decentralized card shuffling. And basically the way this works is all of the players encrypt the cards separately and it's sent back and forth so that it can be proven to be fair and random. I don't know the exact process, but it happens. It happens, guys. So they claim to have 80 hands an hour. We had a YouTube video of 3 people playing a hand that took, essentially, if you multiply it out, it would be 27 minutes of shuffling, which if you guys have played online poker, hands are slow enough, 27 minutes of shuffling might be an issue there with the 80 hands an hour. Let's talk about the justice system. So this is kind of a unique way to fight against cheating. Cheating is probably one of the biggest problems in online poker right now. There are a lot of different ways you can cheat. You can collude with people. Your computer could get hacked. There are maybe some problems with the way tournament registration works. There's all kinds of different things people can do to cheat. So this system, they're essentially trying to create a decentralized solution to cheating. But the funny thing about it is it's actually pretty centralized because it comes down to one individual person who's on their network who has enough of the token and staking those tokens to support the network. They analyze the hand histories to decide who should win the hand. And that just seems to have extreme problems to me because, how do we know that these people are talented enough to actually know what cheating looks like, right? Or what if it's close? It's close, like, you know what, it's close, we'll give it to this guy. Or like, how does that process work? I don't think that it does. And then these are some of the things that people can do to become a justice. So essentially they have to have a token, stake them, set application to active, and be accepted through a review process, which, again, I have questions about to some extent. And I found this quote to be funny as well. If it is found that a player cheated, a punishment is levied, and that player may be banned. May be banned? You cheated. But maybe you'll ban. Maybe not, maybe not. It's a nice guy. All right, so this is one of them. And the other big one is called CoinPoker, which, I don't know, I know all these guys, so I don't want to say anything too negative about anyone, but again, not a big fan of what they're doing. Some of the problems that they aim to fix are not being control your funds, obviously makes sense. A lot of these products are technically transparent. Withdrawals are problematic, and bots and sharks ruins the game, some of the same stuff. This is also quite good. Chips cryptocurrency will be held by you and can be purchased by, quote, reputable third-party exchanges. And they got all the hard hitters here. You can see Allcoin, and of course the Ether Delta. So that's really some great stuff going on here. They're going to have a new RNG. We can just go ahead and move on to the Q&A here. I feel like we're kind of going. But anyway, the point of the matter really is, I don't think that the application of poker on the blockchain makes much sense, and I think that there are a lot of better ways that people can play poker. I do think that it makes sense to use cryptocurrency for payments and processing. Big problem in online poker is hand processing. The fees generally are quite high. We can solve that by using blockchain as payment, but I don't think that makes too much sense. All right, close this out. All right, cool. So, a little presentation for you guys. We'll mix both blockchain and poker there, but we can go ahead and open this guy up for Q&A. Anything you guys want, we can type of cryptocurrency, poker. Please don't ask me for hand history or reviews. All right, let's go over here.
So, obviously a huge overlap between the poker and cryptocurrency world. It seems to me like the natural sort of bridge between that would be like cryptocurrency trading amongst poker players.
Right.
Do you know anyone doing that, like especially in an algorithmic or systematic way? And how do you feel about that?
Well, so I think you're right, and I think there are certain skill sets that apply well. I think one thing that being a poker player teaches you is you can't have emotion. You have to make the mathematically correct play, and that has to be the same for a trader, right? So I do think that there's a lot of overlap. I know that there are some people trying to do it in more of an algorithmic way, but I don't want to blow up their spot. So I don't want to say anyone specifically, but that's definitely happening. As far as a lot of people day trading, frankly, I think a lot of them are clicking buttons and just hoping that they get lucky, or that something, I don't know. I think a lot of those guys don't really know what they're doing. One thing that's absolutely happening right now is people are able to trade based on information that they have. So like if you know that, for example, a coin's getting listed on Coinbase, buy that coin. Pretty simple stuff. So stuff like that, you can absolutely use information to make good trades. But like, can you know based off of technical analysis exactly what price points things will happen? I've always been a bit of a skeptic on that. I'm sure there are people that can do that well, but I think a lot of it's kind of made up. So in summary, I think the skill sets are the same. I think that a lot of the value comes from either having good information of what's happening or setting up your own programs that know when to trade. I think very little of it comes from just analyzing the charts and knowing when to trade. Personal opinion. I'm sure there are people out there that disagree with me. They're like, oh yeah, well, Bitcoin's going to bounce at 6,200. And I'm like, all right, we need to bounce. All right, anyone else have questions?
What are your favorite projects right now?
Favorite projects right now, okay. Well, we'll start large cap. And I'm a huge fan of Monero. In fact, I'm going to have a podcast with Fluffy Pony on Monday. I'm looking forward to. It sounds funny, right? Ricardo Spagni, he's one of the lead devs and I think founders of Monero. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think the way that they do privacy with ring signatures is very innovative and unique. I think that they are one of the only privacy coins that's actually private right now, which that sentence is great. But yeah, I think long-term privacy is going to be a huge factor with cryptocurrency, and I think there's going to be a lot more focus there. So I would expect those to do well long run, I guess. Never want to say anything too specific, but I'm putting some of my chips there for sure. So after that, I would say it's so tough on all the large cap stuff, but I'm going to go with good old-fashioned Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin has been #1 for a long time. I think that the adoption rate for Bitcoin is extremely high. I think if you have a cryptocurrency business, you always take Bitcoin. All exchanges will take Bitcoin. So I think that it's just so hard to kind of surpass anything with that level of adoption is kind of tough to get past. And I also think that you look at like the development team. Bitcoin has the best developers. They're working on the most secure, innovative stuff. I think you will always argue like, oh no, my coin. Like, all right, man, do it. So yeah, I guess I would say Bitcoin as well. I'm a little worried about where Ethereum's at currently. I think that there were a lot of competitors in that space. Like Neo, and then some of the newer ones, they're coming up at some point, some year, like EOS or Cardano. So there's definitely a lot of competition in that space. I also think that with a lot of the uncertainty surrounding the ICO market right now, I think that that's been a big reason for Ethereum tanking. I also think that a lot of the people who raised funds in Ethereum are kind of incentivized to sell as things are going poorly because they don't want the money that's been raised for them to be able to run the project to become worth a lot less, right? So yeah, I think Ethereum has some problems. I know they have a lot of exciting stuff coming up, right? Like Plasma and Casper, I think are both this year, right? So I don't know. I'm not too bullish on Ethereum. Anyway, that's kind of like in the large cap space. I've been investing in several different projects that are smaller recently. They've not been doing well. So yeah, I kind of put some running jokes on my YouTube channel because it's like every time I mention a coin, it's just like straight down. It's like, isn't this not how it's supposed to work? But yeah, I think. Let me think. Where to start? So one that I invested a bunch in was BitClave, and they're trying to decentralize search. And a question that's often asked is, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these, but Brave is probably one of the bigger ones that's currently trying to decentralize some aspects of that information. But I think what Brave is doing is more asking if you want to opt in to see ads, whereas BitClave is much more targeted and saying like, this is your data, and you can choose if you want to basically allow ads that are targeted to you as someone that's interested. So I think that approach is good. And I think it's pretty reasonable too. All they have to do is beat Google. So that seems pretty easy. All right, so that one's pretty cool. I've been investing in Wax for a while too. I think what's cool about that one is they're trying to basically allow like, this industry is interesting. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with esports in general or just gaming in general, right? But there are essentially skins in these games. And it just blows my mind how big video game skins are, how big that industry is. And it's really hard for people to transact with these skins. It's like there's all these issues with it. And I think that Wax is trying to tokenize items and allow them to trade in a way that hasn't been done before. So I think there's a lot of demand there. What else am I interested in? Some of the newer projects that I've been looking at, there's one that I'm currently debating investing in, but it's called DAV, and essentially they're trying to tokenize automated vehicles, essentially. So like, you could, rather than having Uber, you could use DAV's token to rent a car one day, right? That's another example of one. I'm trying to think of like what I'm really excited about, but everything's just getting hammered so hard lately. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, man. I mean, it would be tough to sit here and just go through every single one, but there's like some of the ones I guess I would say. Yeah,
I have a follow-up question about Wax. So the new big Steam is like one of the main places where you're buying pubs, your CSGO skins, and they recently introduced this new policy of like the 7-day trade cooldown on
for a while, right?
No, it just most recent patch on CSGO skins. They introduced this. So do you think that's going to affect the pricing of Wax in any way?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. Because I haven't thought about it until this sentence. So one of the reasons I think Wax will succeed is that OP Skins started it, and they're like the biggest in this space. So I imagine they're going to have some creative solutions for this type of thing. So 7-day cooldown is trading items.
Yeah, so once you trade an item, there's a 7-day cooldown between what can be traded at the end. They're trying to defeat bots.
Oh, the cooldown was for selling items, right?
That was on, it's on actual Steam. So when you buy a OP set, in theory, you can just instantly trade it at the end.
I haven't logged on and guarded B in a while, so it's yeah, I mean, that seems like definitely a hurdle. But I think to some extent they're trying to tokenize many other digital assets as well. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously CSGO is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest. Maybe League of Legends, actually. But anyway, it's one of the biggest for skins, so definitely a hurdle. Could be a good reason to sell them out.
So you were pretty critical of some of the crypto economic standards out there, like the static supply and demand, and staking. Do you have opinions on protocols for crypto economics that you like? Where do you see it going? What's your opinion on that?
Sure. So I think we've seen some shifts over the last 6 months. I think we're seeing a lot more airdrop type strategies from companies, which I do think makes sense because you want to try and get people involved. So I think airdropping some portion of your supply is a fairly smart move. I also am a fan of some of the slow burn rates that I think some projects are developing too. I think that definitely makes sense as well. But it really depends on what you're trying to do, right? Because the economics need to be based around what the project's goals are. And you see, not everything has like a fixed supply, right? Not everything has, we're gonna have like Bitcoin. We're not gonna, if Bitcoin's gonna have 21 million Bitcoin, right? But how many Ethereum will there be? We don't know. So it really kind of depends. And that's also not to say it's a bad thing for Ethereum, right? Because Ethereum's goal is to be this network that facilitates or platform for applications. Maybe it doesn't need to have a fixed supply like something like Bitcoin. So I think you kind of can't look at it just in isolation. I think you have to sort of think about what they're trying to achieve when thinking about token economics. But I would say that I think in general, people don't look hard enough at token economics when they're considering holding a currency.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if you had to create a blockchain poker site, let's say, what level of centralization or like using some sort of off-chain settlement or whatever it might be?
Right.
How would you
Right, and I think a lot of solutions include being more off-chain. I think that it's very popular now to put everything on the blockchain, but that doesn't always make much sense. I think blockchain is best for verifying and securing transactions versus like actually being where you should put your code, right? So if I was going, I just don't think I would use blockchain for it. I just don't see the value. Why not accept Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? I don't really see what problems it solves. Actual problems. Like you can say like, oh, it's provably fair. Is that true? Yes, right? But again, are sites incentivized to rig it? No. So the incentives don't really seem to make sense to me.
Is there some place where people are selling goods or services? Because I was thinking about like stabilizing a coin. Like that's sort of the other question is like, is there a coin that the idea is people are gonna sell their time for like, say, one Litecoin per hour or something, and then people just say, look, this is what we're trying to do, and they'll make a commitment, like.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
So what, I guess I'm wondering, like, if people wanted a stable value for a coin, like, let's say consulting goes for 100 an hour in some like area, and if everybody says, look, we're just gonna take one Litecoin for this thing, then that can sort of stabilize.
Well, so what you're sort of talking about is like pegging a currency to something, and the most common example of that is USDT. Why are you laughing? So USDT is really something interesting because they're stuck in this weird battle of not wanting to kind of give up what their banking information is, but then also needing an audit to prove that they have the funds. And they're not really doing a good job with that. If that means that they're struggling, it's kind of hard to say from the outside. Here's my personal belief about USDT. I'm taking your question in a different direction here. But anyway, here's my thought on USDT. If Tether didn't have the funds, right? There's like $2.4 billion worth of USDT in circulation. If Tether didn't have those funds, right, and it was a scam, well, it wouldn't be trading at $1. It always trades at $1 on Bitfinex. It's always $1, right? And why is that? Well, because someone's buying it up when it goes below, right? And so if someone's buying it every time it goes below $1, that means that there are big players who believe in USDT and are willing to buy it knowing they can trade it for $1. And so I think the market tends to be stronger than people's opinions. And even though the optics are quite bad, and I also want to say, like, I don't know USDT. Why would I? And I don't work for USDT. I have no dog in this fight. I actually talked about this in a video once. People were like, oh, he's a USDT shill. I'm like, why? USDT is the only cryptocurrency that guaranteed will go down in value over time. Why would I be holding it? So I just think that because the market will be fairly efficient for the big players, I don't think that Tether is insolvent. But my personal opinion, obviously. Anyway, going back to your question. So whenever, it's really tough to kind of peg a currency to something like that. And I hear ideas kind of about that a lot. There are some problems. First off, the thing that you peg it to kind of matters. One potential issue with Tether is that you're pegging it to the US dollar, so you're kind of making like a US dollar replica. Where's the US government going to feel? How are they going to feel about that, right? You're like basically mimicking the dollar. So the thing that you tether it to matters, right? And it's hard to think of things that you could tether it to that make a lot of sense. So I'm going to say for now, I don't think you can do that. You can do whatever you want to do, right? But I don't think that makes much sense.
So what about just like the marketplace idea? So people are like, okay, I believe this coin has value to the extent that I'm willing to say I will take this coin instead of saying I'll take whatever $100 translates to in Bitcoin. That sort of applies.
But the thing is that coin shifts in value. So like, let's say that you're like, okay, I'll take one Litecoin to do this test, right? Game over. That's kind of how my thinking goes now. So let's just say that you take one Litecoin to do a task, and the Litecoin drops a lot in value, right? Well, now the supply and demand for you to do that task changes, right? So now as it's worth less, there's more demand for you to do the task. Well, now your pricing doesn't make sense because now you have a ton of demand. Why would you change your price? So essentially, like, the market becomes inefficient as the coin drops in value. As it increases in value, your price point might not make sense because now there's no demand. So if people just all got together, said, guys, one Doge equals one Doge, and then it would be great. But the thing is, like, it doesn't, and markets exist. And
But would that actually be great? I mean, because it seems that people are in this partially because they just think the dollar's going to go up. It's not necessarily, we think we're going to give people in Africa 50 cents now, and that's going to.
Well, unless you're Roger Ver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I don't see. I mean, here's the thing. Like, cryptocurrency is volatile, right? It's an extremely speculative market. and it's going to be volatile. But the question becomes, how much volatility are we okay with? And that's something that I think really depends on who you are. There's no way to say this is going to be worth X amount of dollars unless you tether it, and then you take away a lot of the value of investing cryptocurrency to begin with, right? You don't want to hold currencies like that because there's no point. There's no point unless what it's tethered to increases in value over time. So I think that markets, I feel like it's too idealistic for us to say we'll just accept this as our method of payment no matter what, without thinking about what the value of it is in the current market.
Well, you could change it. I mean, but I guess I think that the optics or whatever of saying I take one Litecoin would be better than saying I take 1.03 Litecoin, or 0.97
Well,
Litecoin.
how often are you going to change it though?
When it's significant enough that it matters. So I mean, a person could say take a quarter Litecoin an hour if they're a new employee, and then if they're whatever more.
But what if that changes every day? So you see what I'm saying?
Well, no, but so what I'm saying is that you kind of just make that decision. Is it worth it to, if you want to shift into like the economy where we're saying, Litecoin, we don't care about the dollar, then I think it'd be worthwhile to just kind of say, look, I'm okay if I'm getting paid $97.50 instead of $100 because Litecoin went down,
I don't think people will agree to that. Yeah.
On a side note, if you're interested in stable coins, you should come to our Monday event.
Nice plug. On a side note, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it worked. But any questions here?
So you have this new website, what's your methodology to create the content?
Sure. So we have one of the owners named Alex Moskov, and he's in charge of the content team. So he actually hires all the people. But generally speaking, we try and get people that have some type of history writing for other sites or some kind of credibility within the space already. And then we have write some kind of articles, and the ones that are good weekly. So we also, before we post everything, we go through to make sure that it's up to our standards, because it's really important for us to keep posts factually based, on the actual data, and try to stay away as much as possible from, I don't want to say any opinion, because we never do that, but keep it away from opinion to an extent that we feel is how the article should be written. I don't know if that exactly makes sense, but we're really committed to trying to get good information out there. One of the big problems right now is if you own a currency, right, you're going to want to succeed. And so I think people tend to be extremely blind to problems with their own currency. This is actually kind of funny. This happened yesterday. So I actually got blocked on Twitter by the cryptocurrency Verge, which is like a big one. I think like 20th or 25th biggest or something. I was trying to warn my followers about Verge because it's a total shit show over there. And then they blocked me. I'm like, wow, seems legit. Yeah, I feel like if I say something bad about theory, but Metallic was like, blocked. So I think people tend to really try to, they don't want to hear the bad. They want to hear the good, right? We're going to the goddamn moon. Get in my Lambo right now. Like, that's what they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear, turns out there's a major security flaw. No one reads that and is like, nice. So, like with Verge, this is hilarious. I think I'm gonna do a video on this when I get back home, because this subject is amazing. So Verge, which is a Dogecoin fork, basically, right, centered around privacy. So we can get into Verge itself. Their privacy has been proven to be fake. It actually has, in some instances, shown people's IP addresses on transactions, which is like what? But let's just take the groundbreaking tech and put it to the side for a moment. The stuff that's been happening in the last few days or week, the founder announced that there's an announcement coming. Classic Justin Sun move. Announced there's an announcement coming about a major partnership. Groundbreaking news, guys. April 17th. You're going to be there? I'm going to be there. It's like, all right, guys, let's calm down. Verge price jumps. I'm like, all right. And then over the last few days, there have just been a bunch of shady stuff. So some hacker figured out a way to, I don't want to be misquoted here because I don't know the exact technically what happened, but basically a hacker found a way to mine $1 million-ish worth of Verge over the course of like 13 hours. And so Verge tried to do something to fix it and then accidentally hard forked. And like now doesn't have compatibility on a bunch of their wallets because they accidentally hard forked. It's just total nonsense. Anyway, so I'm trying to warn my followers. I'm like, look guys, like probably be careful here, right? I tweeted about it and I posted something on Telegram. And then I just like went on and like all these Verge fanboys were like, you are an idiot! You are spreading fun because you're mad you missed out on these gains. Yeah, man, you're right. I did miss out on the games. So like, you know, people they just get so emotional, and that's actually something that I think is really important. I think it's really important to, going back to kind of the earlier question about, you know, does the skill set from poker translate over to cryptocurrency? You know, you have to have a very level head, and you have to be like, I am okay understanding and accepting that negative things can happen to coins I like, right? Because otherwise, what are you doing? Why would you just blindly just be like, I'm not listening? Like, that makes no sense. There's no reason to do that. So I actually think that the way that these things get stronger is by people trying to figure out what's wrong and fixing it and bringing it to light, rather than just trying to dig your head in the sand and hope everything works out. I feel like that wasn't a question, but we got it. Anyway.
So
Sure.
fact checking is basically you're looking at the technology specifically. That's your primary source of fact checking.
Definitely a technology-specific post, or posts, as well as we might post about like what relevant people have said. But yeah, it tends to be more technology-based. All right.
Unrelated to crypto, did you use computer programs to help you play heads up, and if so, to what extent?
Yeah, sure. So I think we're past the point where I'm playing anybody, so we can talk about this. I actually had a buddy write a program for me to help. You know, it wasn't like I was trying to solve the game, but view it differently. And so I have my own custom software that I use to like heads up, to do things in a little bit of a different way, more game tree based, and you know, how often like it would basically set up the tree in a way that would show me like on certain textures the way that they acted, kind of like the break-even points on different lines. So I wouldn't say that it was extremely robust by any stretch of the imagination, but it was my own custom software that I had developed to help me, and then I also used it in some other areas as well. But I more used it because I have a way that I like to play poker, and I wanted something to help me be able to do that, rather than try to, you know, for example, solve anything, because it's just so difficult to do. You know, when I looked at poker, I took a very different approach, I think, for most people, which was, I viewed it more as like, there were all these different lines you can take, all these different ways you can play. And so rather than feeling strongly about one of them, kind of reminds me of the last conversation, the last topic, I was like, I'm going to try to use all of them to the best of my ability, right? Like all the different lines. Betting the flop, checking the turn, betting the river. Or checking the flop, checking the turn, betting the river. Or, you know, all these lines. I want to bluff everywhere, the right amount. So I took it way more as, how do my opponents defend against me in all these spots? And the ones that they're weaker in, then I would do more raising or take those lines more frequently. So like, for example, if someone pulls the flop too much, take that line at a higher frequency than like a check bet line, for example. So I always view the game kind of more in those terms, and I had my own software that helped me on the way that.
How do you adapt this, like, because it sounds like you're exploiting like minute frequency differences. How do you adapt that to playing live games?
Sure. So for starters, you know, this is heads up, and you can't really do that. You don't really play heads up live. I think it's really important. I think this is the way that poker should be played. Try to get as good of a baseline way to play, you know, a theoretical approach. Play the game the way that not you feel like it should be played to win the most money, but the way that it should be played, the right way to play, you know, from a theory standpoint. And then, as you become more confident in your reads on a situation or a player or anything like that, deviate, right? Always start with that strong fundamental basis. Now, I actually take a different approach with live poker than a lot of people, which is, when I play live poker, I know the only way I can lose is if I start doing stupid shit to exploit people, and they beat me, right? I know if I play like my theory game live, I will always win. So I come in just like kind of not really guessing too much about like people's tendencies, and I make small adjustments based on showdowns or frequencies or what I see, right? Like if someone's just going, like if there's some guy from Scandinavia in seat 4, and like he's 3-betting everyone, like every hand, right? Then I might open tighter because this guy's in seat 4, right? So I think like making some small adjustments as you go along is good, but in general, start with your game and then make small adjustments as you go along. So you can't really use the same way of playing online and transferring that to live because it takes you longer to get the data. And because of that, I don't change my play as quickly as a lot of people do. And then this is a subject that people debate all the time. And I get told I'm an idiot by many people, so feel free to go in whatever direction you want to go. But I think that way, assuming you're coming from a background of a strong player, you don't open yourself up to be beat. Or did you actually want to say something else?
I just had a follow-up question about
Sure.
the so I think that maybe it's just because I'm not super advanced, but I think that like in your videos, it's pretty clear how to react to certain bet sizes. Sorry, this is very close.
That's fine.
It's very clear how to like react to certain bet sizes because you just kind of like look at bet size and then you like think about your range and whether or not it, like you can like make a profitable call. This is like an ideal scenario on the river, and you're reacting to like some sort of bet. But how do you like figure out a theoretical basis for the proper bet size, like when you're out of position? Because
Right.
that's just something I've
Sure.
done.
No, you're just asking like the most common possible question. That's cool. So here's the problem. We are nowhere near solving one, right? Because the amount of the bet at time is infinite. So, or up to your max, right? But there's so many different degrees of what that could be. So all you can really do is try to pick like certain ones and then run simulations about along those. But the problem is the more bet sizes you pick, the larger the game tree becomes, the harder it is to solve, right? So what I'm essentially saying is we are nowhere near computing power to be able to actually solve what's correct. Yes, let's put that to the side. But there are certain things that we can extrapolate from picking only certain sizes as far as what are likely to be correct theoretical assumptions. It is likely that the play that opens pre-flop should use a lot of smaller bet sizes on the flop to take advantage of the fact the other player has a much wider range of lead holdings, right? There are things we can extrapolate like that. There's also kind of more like, in practice wisdom that you can think of, like maybe on certain boards, like for example, a low flop, like 2, 4, 5, it makes a lot more sense to use bigger sizes because you deny more hands that your opponent could float, right? Because they always have 2 overcards at least. So essentially, there are no actual solutions yet. I mean, one day we'll likely have them, I'm almost sure we will. But for the time being, you have to use the tools that you do have to extrapolate what likely strategies are that are going to be good. All right, half there in the power link. Go right.
You mentioned earlier that you accomplished a lot of your poker goals.
Yeah.
What were those goals, and do you still have any like major ones that are unaccomplished?
I mean, so that's a good question. So for starters, I never really cared much about live poker. And it's weird because most people, oh man, you won 3 bracelets, that's gotta be the best, right? And I'm like, yeah. And it's funny because the most proud moment I ever had was in 2014, I think, maybe 13, must have been a really proud moment. I played against one of their top guys, Ben Solsky, like a heads-up challenge. And he was like, everyone thought he was #1, and I was the underdog, and I was like, yeah, here we go. We did like a public challenge, there were graphs, and like everyone was sweating, and I just like beat him down, right? It was